Reminds me of just a few days ago when we were gathered together as a family, having some good food and joking around with each other, watching the Lions almost win. And that's what it reminds me of just now. We're all just sitting here talking like a family. Let's start this morning by a prayer. If you don't mind, let's stand together. Ask the Lord to come into this place and help us. Jesus, we reach out to you. You are the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And we need you here today to work with us in our minds and our hearts, in the things that we need to be wiser at, Lord, that we can reach the people around us, make good decisions to move into the eternity with you, Lord God, because we have begun our eternal lives now, because we are living souls. And we ask that you would touch all those here today that are sick in body, that aren't here today sick in body, Lord, that they can be able to make it here again at a service to enjoy the presence of you and your people. And everybody said amen. You may be seated. The last lesson of the fall. Next week we all get new books, and we start on the next, I guess it's basically the winter sessions. But this one ends, and they've all been a series of wisdom of some sort. This one calling on wisdom's warnings. So it's interesting. I'm sure if you have your books, you can follow along. If not, I'll try to read as much as I can. I like the fact that this one was saying choosing wisdom. And that key word there, choosing, is to select freely and after consideration. You choose something freely, but after consideration. When I go to buy something, I like to do a lot of research into it first. I'm considering, is this the best product to buy, or is this not a good product to buy? Is it going to last just a couple years, or is it going to last for a little bit longer than that? I was surprised a few years ago when I had to go buy a new refrigerator that they're extremely expensive, for one. And so you're looking at all of them. You want doors like this. You want doors that go all the way across. You want on the bottom and the top, whatever. Do you want it to talk to you when you get up in the morning? Hi, Tony, how's it going? It's a nice day out. They have all that. Have you seen the giant screens? It'd be as wide as my iPad here, or bigger. But I was talking to different people. I went into Best Buy. I went into ABC Warehouse and different places, and I was looking to find what the best quality was. And I only had one good salesperson because I felt like he gave me words of wisdom. It doesn't matter which one you buy, or how many gizmos and gadgets, or the price tag. If you spend little, spend much. They're only going to last you 7 years. I'm like, 7 years? He goes, yeah, what do you got right now? I told him, I said, yeah, but it's about 25 years old. He goes, and that's the last of those. Because they're not efficient. People don't want to work on them anymore. And so we got to sit there and pray that ours makes it 8 or 9 years. Because they don't have the quality. So you try to make the best decision based on what you have in front of you. Cars, houses, even relationships. But you'll find out through this here that you do that after careful consideration. And then you make the choice. And the Lord, if you seek Him first, you'll have the best choice. If you don't, well, you're going to have some bumps in the road. And you're going to have some things that happen. But it also says choosing is to have a preference for. And as we're talking about this today, I'm thinking more of the fact of having a preference for the things of the Lord. So let's go real quick, if you don't mind. I'm going to read the entire passage here of Ecclesiastes 12. Like I was telling Julie the other day, and those that sit in the class on Sundays with me know that I give them a lot of scripture, not just because of the fact I'm trying to bore them and put them to sleep. It's because whoever's standing here teaching you, no matter who it is, where they're from, they better be teaching out of the Word of God. And a lot of times if we can get a little bit, remember, Satan was taking a little bit of the truth in the garden and twisting it. So you have to see these for yourself. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 12. Give me a second here while I catch up with you. Sorry. And so you'll read here, it's a wisdom book. We're going to start at verse 1, and it says, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when shalt thou say, I have no pleasure in them? While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, And the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out the windows be darkened. I'm going to stop right there for a second. That talks about aging. Choose wisdom while you're young, because eventually you're going to be stooped over, not going to be able to stand up straight. There's going to be less hard workers that are working in the workforce. Your days are going to be darkened. The clouds are not just talking about the clouds outside today, but the clouds of life, seeing things differently through misery, through death, through sickness and illness and hurts and pains. Right? Is that what he's talking about? And the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of a bird, and all the daughters of the music shall be brought low. Also when they shall be afraid of that which is nigh, and fear shall be in the way. And the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail. Because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. Wherever the silver cord be loosened, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel be broken at the cistern, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was. Now, when I was reading that, I was saying that when this body dies, it's going to return to the dust because of the next part. And the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Eventually, we're going to have a funeral, every one of us. And so that means one day we are going to be the ones that makes the rest of you cry. Right? We're going to have our turn. We have had our turns of suffering through this. Sister McKinnis, I couldn't help think about Brother John this weekend. You know, it's just a person that really held me up, like many of you do. And I don't have his children's numbers, but I was thinking of them, how I'd like to text them, thinking about them, you know, because it's the first Thanksgiving without their dad, you know. And Brother Jameson here, same thing, thinking about him too. You know, these are, and we've all had these. I bumped into your brothers. I'm sitting there, I'm trying to record Elia and the light parade, and then I see Robert turn around and say, Tony, I saw that barn hill, is that yours? I'm like, yep. You know, and then, of course, he had Brother Brian there as well, and, you know, so they were talking about your mom and how it's just hard, you know, the first time. They've always come to this light parade. I was kind of surprised. They live an hour away, but they always make it to this parade, and they always try to visit Mom and things like that. But, you know, it's been a transition in the last 3 years where they couldn't even go see her because of all the restrictions and stuff, and it's just not the same. And we can all do this throughout all of our lives at some point, right? But things are coming. And moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yea, he gave good heed and sought out and set in order many proverbs. The preacher sought to find out acceptable words, and that which was written was upright, even words of truth. The words of the wise are as goads, and as nails fastened by the masters of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. And further, by these, my son, be admonished. By making many books there is no end, and much study is weariness of the flesh. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God, and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment, with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. And our key verse is that last verse there, which says, for God shall bring every work. And let me emphasize that over and over, every work. And so I started researching into this. I don't know about the rest of you, how you read these things and how you breeze through them. I mean, I've read this chapter, I'm sure, many times, but I never really sat there and just dissected it. We only pick up on the one verse here at the end. So it's trying to tell us, a lot of times when people would teach us, they would teach us these things to say, hey, actually, Jameson, you got that picture? The one you showed me? Yeah. Actually, that's perfect. That's perfect. Do you mind walking that around just really quick and as I'm teaching? We did not plan this. We did not plan this, Jameson. But Jameson's really, really good at drawing. And he's got Jesus peeking around the corner and saying, I saw that. But that's what this verse is. I see all your good works, whether they're in secret or whether they be good, or whether they be evil. And we will be judged of these works, these things that we do. When I sat there and dissected into this word, I go into the concordance and I'm looking down into it, and it literally means everything. It doesn't mean just works, it means everything. You can go and you can pull it up on yourself in a concordance or in the book, the really thick one, like this big, that I used to carry around until I got smart and downloaded an app, but now I can just have it all right here. And so it says everything. It's talking about your job. It's talking about what you purchase. It's talking about who you love, who you want to like, what you want to do in life, your aspirations, your dreams, your everything. Everything. Not just what you're thinking or what you did, but everything in your life. Now, that was a very big emphasis to me in this particular election cycle because of the one proposal that was going to be on there that was going to be, and they said it, that was the one thing they said, well, there was a lot of good things, but that was one thing that even this politician stood up and said, the decision you make is going to be on the record for eternity. Because people don't take it for serious a lot of times. They don't see that these decisions are literally being jotted down somewhere. You decided this. You decided that. Whether it be good or not. So, let's go down into the lesson connection. I'm going to read the story because it's a good story. So bear with me. The young king sat on the throne, his outward air of confidence hiding nervousness and trepidation. In truth, he would have preferred something other than hearing from the line of people waiting to appeal to him. His brother Absalom had nearly stolen the kingdom from his father David by drawing followers away, pretending to truly care about them and their concerns. The fledgling monarch knew he had a responsibility to provide good leadership to his people. He also had to guard the kingdom his father fought so hard, and I underlined this part, to protect from interlopers who would lead the people astray. That's not just in the kingdom, that's in God's kingdom as well. We have to be careful for the interlopers that would lead us astray. Some of the people already found themselves living in sin as evidenced by the two prostitutes presenting their case to the king. The first one spoke up and told of the birth of a child to each woman. But during the night, the other woman rolled over on her baby, and the baby died. Surreptitiously, she replaced the first woman's living child with her dead child. In the morning, the first woman knew the dead child was not hers. When she finished telling her side of the story, the second prostitute disputed her claims. This left the king with the quiet of a conundrum. The king wisely repeated the scenario showed he understood the case. Then he called for a sword. The words must have floored his advisors as he commanded that the child be divided in half. The members of the court likely thought the king draft. Silently, many may have labeled him young and unwise. As they remembered his father's record, they probably thought the apple had fallen very far from the tree. But let's put ourselves in that place today. You're in the king's court. You hear these two people. First off, there's going to be a segment of us that are like, oh, geez. They put themselves in this mess. Right? Right? Because we're judging the lifestyle that they have. And then you could have some that'll be like, you rolled over on your baby and didn't notice? And then the other one, you would side with her. First off, who in the right mind wakes up in the morning and you don't recognize your kid? Now, when Julie and I were sitting in one of Michael's bedrooms, we got so many of us were spread literally around the house, having our private little Thanksgiving dinner, I seen a picture upside down in one of her plastic stowaway cases, whatever, in the closet, and I could have sworn up and down that it was me and Christopher and Andrea with that little cowboy hats we had when we were little. And so Julie pulls it out and looks at it, and it's Matt and his identical twin brother, Chris. Because Matt is an identical twin. So on the back side, the mom had to write, left is Matt, right is Chris. That's different, because those are both your kids. But when you're sleeping in like a big room with bunk beds and people, come on, they're not going to look the same, right? So they sit there And he calls for a sword, and you're like, what is this guy doing? And he's going to cut the baby in half? I mean, yeah, you would think he was nuts. If we had a leader today, let's just say Judge Stewart, we were up in front of him, and he's like, bring a sword. For what? You know, and you can see the police officer standing over here by the door, and it's like, go get a sword. We're going to cut this kid in half. They would probably walk him out and down to the hospital, to the stress unit, for mere calling it. Right? Does that feel alive and real to us today? And if we were in the courtroom, we'd feel that way, like, get this guy out of here. But then, it produced the right results. But wisdom produced that desired result. Before the king had the opportunity to divide the living baby, the true mother spoke up to preserve the precious babe, while the false mother called for the division of the child. With the rightful mother revealed, Solomon pronounced that she would have the baby. All the people of Israel heard the wisdom of the king and were in awe of him. Solomon proved that wisdom has practical applications and will yield real-world results, even in the face of difficult questions and circumstances. And I still could not draw the similarities between our culture today. There are those people that literally want to divide the child still. And then there are those who want the baby to live at all costs. Is it no difference? Is that same spirit in the world right now, if not stronger? Pastor, you had mentioned that book a few weeks ago, Jonathan Cahn, and I couldn't help. I've read a couple of his books. Sister Louise has given me. I've watched one of his videos or two. I can't remember. And I follow him like on YouTube as well. I don't watch it all the time, but occasionally I'll just catch the highlights, and move on. And then, of course, when you mentioned that book and it talked about the gods have returned, of course, I automatically knew that you're talking about the fallen angels that are influencing mankind, and then they end up in the old culture worshiping them and creating gods out of them. And so I had to get the book, and I'm about a third of the way through it. And it's quite interesting. It's sad because you can see those spirits have returned. They have never really left, but they were banished because of Jesus walking on the earth, and they were not allowed to do what they were supposed to do. And the church comes up and starts flourishing all over the world, and so their cultures have been decimated. The Greek and the Roman and the Vikings, all this stuff. They all have the same spirits that are leading them. And so they have America now that has been born with the spirit of let's produce in God's kingdom. Whether you believe in God or not, the ways of the commandments are what all of us want. Nobody, whether they are an atheist or not, wants someone to steal from them. Nobody, whether they're atheist or not, wants to have someone be killed around them, right? So the Ten Commandments are still a good basis to live by, no matter how you believe. But those very foundational principles are being torn away from our society, and in doing so, we have allowed for the now swept house to have that spirit come back in and starts bringing in the other 7 unclean spirits. Now, these are not just little empty little things that you think when you hear those stories. These are they're the big dogs of the spirit world. They come in and they don't have an agenda. They only have one thing. They hate all of us and they want us all to die. They want to steal, kill, and destroy from their father, Satan, right? So I'm reading through this thing, and it's like it's really a lot to grasp onto. Not because they're big words, but it's like he really draws a connection of the spirits back then have now come back because we opened the door. We stopped praying in schools. We stopped reading the Bible in part of the curriculum of the schools. And then about 10 years later, you have Roe versus Wade. We start killing babies and sacrifice to ourselves that we want to have a better looking body, or we want to have a more convenient life, or a career, family, whenever we want to. What's the difference? The difference is they're not just taking a child by the leg and throwing him in a fire like they did back then. Who in their right mind can do that? You're not in your right mind. That's the thing. They don't see that they're being influenced by a spirit, because now is the time, and we're going to our next part. I'm getting a little off topic. Now is the time to serve God. Now is that time, because time is drawing short. I just read a very brief article this morning saying that 40% of the survey that was taken just this last week believed that we're drawing to the end of time. whether they were a Christian or not. They said it's getting too crazy out here. Something's got to change. Now, my belief is that there is not the end of time. It's actually the end of the church age and the beginning of the millennial kingdom of Jesus. And some people believe that we've had the millennial kingdom of Jesus for the last 2,000 years because he died and the kingdom of Christ is being built. But I'm sorry, this has not been peaceful. So that's not the kingdom of Christ. The kingdom of Christ is coming, where it's going to be hard to fathom watching a lion eat a straw of hay, right? Instead of the lamb it's sitting next to, right? I get a little piece of peanut butter on a spoon, and my dogs start licking their lips before it even gets close one. They do, all three of them. They just start licking the lips because they know it's coming. So here you got a lion that's not even licking its lips. I mean, or a child is playing near a rattlesnake hole and it doesn't bother them. I mean, this is stuff that's just hard to believe. And then that's going to go on for 1,000 years, showing you what it's like, what the kingdom of God was meant to be, how God is supposed to govern all of us, not mankind, because we don't do so good at all this. It says here, we may sometimes think of the world as being inconvenient, but we live in a time of convenience beyond the wildest dreams of the previous generations. Even when we find ourselves faced with the annoying inconvenience of a traffic jam that will put us at home too late, I don't want to read it verbatim, that we can't make dinner so we can hurry up while we're in the traffic jam, whip out the phone, order a Hungry Howie's, and pick it up and still be able to eat. We're annoyed by this fact, right? The modern conveniences still have the trouble of making time for all the things we need to do. Our devices provide us access to the world, yet what they can cut off our family and friends and our time with them. We can have a billion different Facebook friends that we don't even know. I'm not even joking you. I can't even keep track. Julie probably thought I was exaggerating a little bit. But I had sat there when I really understood this Proposal 3. I told it to several of you in a private setting, basically. And then I took that article and I forwarded it to Brother David Bernard. I forwarded it to Brother Dave Robbins' group, Irvin Baxter's End Time group. I forwarded it to a guy that I like to follow, Brother Ken Raggio. And then I also forwarded it to Brother Robin Johnson, another prophecy teacher in the UPC. And I asked them all to pray about it and with their sphere of influence, try to get this out to help pray for Michigan. I did not hear back from any of them, but at the time was General Conference. I didn't realize it when I sent it. And then, our End Time team, this is the only thing I can guess, by the way. The End Time team has a booth down there in their area where I don't know if you've ever been to one of these. I haven't been to General Conference. I have been to the Youth Congress with the kids, and they have an area that's full of, merchants selling things, shirts that don't fit me, and I want one, and they don't have any more. Whatever, So that's where End Time is at, and they're usually doing their broadcast that week live from the booth. So the only thing I can think of is that as he was passing by, somebody must have read it, because all of a sudden I started getting scores and scores of people wanting to be Facebook unfriends that were from all over the world and are part of the UPC. Nothing else made sense of how these people could know it, except for they had people that were at General Conference, and somehow the word got out. I handed my phone. I was driving somewhere. I handed it to Joe. I said, look, you don't believe me? Every time I open this thing, there's 50 more people wanting to be friends. I don't know who they are, and they're connected to someone I do know. Like Brother Mike Brown in Howell, or Brother Art Wilson. I mean, they are connected to somebody I do know, which is very interesting. I took it as the fact that was God's way of getting the word out and praying for us, whether we knew it or not. Or how it got connected, it doesn't matter. I guess why I said all that is I got a bunch of friends on Facebook now I don't know. Yeah, as long as they're praying for me. So, but we may think we have little time for God through all this. And that's the thing. We may even look for more convenient season. So if we had a spotlight up right here right now and I could turn it to this section over here, I remember being their age. And it's I got all this time. I got a different season in my life so that I can really give it to the Lord, and work for him. When, honestly, we're the most impactful when we're your age, right? That's why Ecclesiastes started out the way that it did, because it said, basically it was a young person saying, there's plenty of time. I don't have any troubles in my life. I don't have to worry. I don't have any aches and pains. But then you get old faster than you want, right? We were just talking to Camden last night, Kira. Does it feel like it's just been 6 months ago you graduated, or does it feel like it's gone really fast and you're like, wow, all this? I mean, if you think about it, lots happened. But it's just 6 months ago and you guys were still in high school. Next thing you know, Alyssa or Jameson and Jake, you guys are going to be hitting some reunion, right? And next thing, over here in this section, wherever, you'd hit the 60th reunion. You're like, what? That's hard to believe. It just flies by, doesn't it? So, we can't ignore the fact that age will someday sap our strength and rob us of our opportunities. I was sitting at a men's conference one time, and they were saying the 3 different phases of a man's life. The young years, where we're always struggling and trying to make something out of ourselves and get ahead a little bit and make some money, put some stuff in the bank, never being able to get anywhere, or tires are spinning, it feels like. And then you get to the middle-aged part, and okay, kids are kind of growing up or out of the house maybe, and you got a better, your better spot in your job usually, and you're saving more money, or you have more money, whatever it may be. And then you get to your later years, and you start resenting the fact that you didn't try harder in the beginning. And you start being regretful that you live those end years, if you're not careful, regretting the things that you should have done that were more important than trying to get somewhere. And I think they were really speaking to us men that day, because that's how men are driven. We're results-oriented. We want to see some results out of something. We're not just building the ramp. We want the ramp to work, Sister Wendy. We want you to be safe to get in and out of the house. Right, guys? We want to see that what we're working towards helps. It reminds you of the other proverb of you're working to fill a bag with holes in it sometimes. But then you get down the road, and it was Brother Donnie, Sister Deb, that sat there and really brought this one to light for me, because, we got married on the same day. So we have a special connection that we've brought up many times over the years. And so part of that was watching us both grow as couples and individuals. And one day Donnie stops me, and you can see the look on his face, and he was down and out about something. And I said to him, I said, Brother Donnie, you'll be all right. He says, you don't know what it's like being me. I said, hold on a minute. What do you mean? He goes, well, because you're up there teaching, and and you're being successful, or whatever he was saying. I don't remember the exact words. I said, Brother Donnie, you of other people should know where I came from. Because and the reason why I said that was, you got to keep working. And you don't even know where you're at sometimes until you turn around and see how far you've come, right? And other people see how far you go or how far you've been. So I will serve God now. This is important, and I'm seeing it more and more clearly every day, because I start going now to certain spots, and I got people coming up to me saying, Tony, are you going to run again? I don't know these people. I can't pick them out of a 2-person lineup. But they notice, and they're like, our kids really need you to try again. And I'm like, first thought of, why don't you try? It's your kids. But that tells me that people want something. They want we saw this even in the old times. And Jesus, Mom, you brought this up, is that there was the Pharisee that wanted to know more about Jesus and wanted to be saved. Nicodemus became the Jesus by night because he didn't want everybody to know what he was doing. That's what it is. A lot of people want to hide out in the background. They don't want to be in the spotlight, but they still want someone to fight for them. And it gives me a certain urgency in my heart and mind that I got to serve the Lord first, because that's what's going to change these people, not politics. And so it's kind of like this says right here. We should serve God willingly and faithfully, instead of thinking of salvation as a fire insurance policy that will deliver us from the flames of hell one day. We shouldn't live, and it does say live, to fear the Lord. And that means to revere him and to know that he can destroy you. It means both sides. But to revere him means to put him in consideration again first, to consider what he's thinking or what he's planning for you. How many of us have missed something? We don't even know what we have missed because we didn't make the choice that we should have made, and so the Lord wasn't able to work with us the way he wanted to. He's got a plan for each one of us here. We're not supposed to just keep this padded pew warm until the next generation comes in. We are supposed to give back to the people around us, and you can do that in your own ways. Sister Carrie, you've always been really good at reaching people. That's why Chris is here today. Now, she will not, watch, she will not grab the microphone, even on Thanksgiving Tuesday, but she will talk to people outside of the microphone, and that is a good thing. And there's other people. It got brought up again. Grandma, Andrea came up to me and says, you were talking about me at church? Mom told me that you were saying. I said, well, Andrea, it's because you can come right into a room, you don't care who's in there, and you just start talking about how the service was and how God touched people and how the Lord had a tongues and interpretation, and this is what he told our church. You don't care who's around. So, not all of us are like that. Some of us are caring. Some of us remember different things about people, which make a difference. When you remember their birthdays or their anniversaries. Sorry, I'm a little off topic here today. Let me see where oh, good. Big old clock, I can see it. Basically, it says here, let's go down to number 3 here. Our highest priority is to fear God and keep his commandments. If we ourselves are heading down the wrong paths because of incorrect priorities, that's what happens a lot of times. But we can sit here and do what they say is a spiritual examination of ourselves. Let us all prioritize fearing God and keeping his commandments. It's not hard to keep his commandments when you want to. Just like when a person wants to stop being alcoholic, they're going to stop. As hard as it is, they're going to figure it out because now they want to. There's a difference. I have visually seen people walking out of those classes that they've been mandated by the court and then go out and really quick and take a sip of something and go back in and fill up the coffee. They don't want to. They're doing it because they have to. They're being made to. But then there's others that do want to change. They don't want to lose their family. They don't want to lose their health or their money or their houses. And eventually they get to the point, some of them, they're like, you know what, I don't even want to lose my soul. You know, it starts saying there's something else here. And so our greatest obligation in life is to the Lord. The one thing about that article they said is that everybody believed times were going to get harder before they got better. That was an independent article. You know, I just happened to see it. Like I said, I usually only read the headlines, and if it interests me, I'll try to read a paragraph or two. But should say something in this world. I think many people, no matter how they believe, know this can't keep going on. Something's going to happen. The world 20 global wealthiest nations leaders called G20 met a couple weeks ago. And the biggest thing on their topic was we got to do something to prepare for the next pandemic. Not to prevent it, to plan for it. And how we're going to do that is we really do. And they have agreed now that those 20 richest nations, being the United States being one of them, is saying that we need a global digital passport for vaccines. They could care less about a rail passport. They're only going to care about the QR code that's going to say that you're clear. And they want to implement it the beginning of next year. It's not about the vaccines, people. It's not about the pandemic. Those are the means to the end. Control. They don't want you to leave your country if you don't do something that they tell you to do. And eventually they're going to say, we don't want you to leave your state unless you do what we say. And then they're going to say, we don't want you to leave your county unless you do what we say. Then your city, then your house. And if you don't think that that's what they're thinking, look at 2020. How many of you left the house every day from like March till June? Not many. You didn't go places because they said not to. And I'm trying to get this to make this real is that is what Revelation 13 is about when they talk about the mark of the beast. And I'm not saying that's the mark of the beast, but it is they're getting us used to it. We knew a long time ago, Pastor, when we heard At least I did in the 90s, where they were talking about ways of controlling people was going to be through like some type of implant. They were talking about in the 90s, because I remember it. Early 90s. I was a teenager, mid-teenager probably. And so I was always mindful of the fact, like, ooh, what could that be? What could this be? I knew it would come through money, because it says you can't buy or sell. But did you really think of it on a personal level? That you go today and you go buy gas and it says decline? Wait, what? No, I know I got money in there. Decline? Decline? What's going on here? You hurry up, get on your phone, and you look at the app. Oh, I got money. Oh, it's because I didn't agree with what they wanted me to agree with. And they're saying, sorry, Charlie. This U.S., they call it a digital coin that they're fast implementing as well, is how they're going to do it. Because they're going to say you got to have a part of the digital dollar, or whatever they want to call it. The central bank digital coin is what they call it. CBDC. Get used to that, because that's all over the world. Central bank digital coin. President Biden did this back this year, saying we need to fast track this thing and have it ready for next year. It's kind of funny. It's about the same time they want to have this digital passport, for vaccinations ready as well. And then they're going to say at one point, I guarantee you, because they did it with the gold. They wanted to take gold off the street and not back the U.S. dollar. What was it, back in Nixon or Eisenhower? I don't remember which guy it was. Lyndon B. Johnson, I think, actually. So they took us off the gold standard, which means every dollar in our pocket was backed by an ounce of gold. But they said, you know what, we're going to get that off the street. You got to turn all your gold in by a certain time, or else it's not going to be worth anything. They were lying. Look how much gold is worth today. So they have a path here and a plan that they've been working on since 1913, when we snuck in the Federal Reserve. Because the Federal Reserve is not federal at all. A little off topic, I'm sorry. But what I'm trying to say is the enemy is all about controlling our thoughts. They're going to try to convince you. They are trying right now to convince you to say something that your heart and mind does not believe. Are they not? This is going on. That's going on. You got to be politically correct. You got to. They're trying to convince your mouth to say something that your heart and mind does not believe. And that is the master of lying himself. Let's get them to say good is evil and evil is good. Again, we know that that's evil. But you got to say it's okay. We know in our heart and mind it's not right. But we got to agree with them, or else they're going to do something to us. Right? The thought police in the long run. I didn't mean to make it so somber. I try to let the Lord work through me. But our job is to get people to have a relationship with Jesus. And how can we do that if we're just living our life, just trying to make it through the next phase, the next season, right? We got to always be kind of planning. It's kind of like when they were building the wall. They had to be building with one hand, fighting them off with the other. We got to be planning, but still fight. Fight for the spirits of people. Fight for the lives of people. Really believe that you're not just a wall right there. You're literally between the abyss of hell and trying to stop them from going. That's what we're supposed to be. The ones that are interceding for them. For their lives. For their needs. They just want to be loved and accepted. They really do. But they need some genuine Jesus love that we can all give. We all know better. We're all here. Can we just take a few minutes where you're sitting and just pray for a minute? Is that all right? Just kind of turn this into a real quick prayer meeting, and then you can get up and whenever you feel need to.